Welcome, everyone. I'm Professor Joanne Ordilli from the Rutgers Business School, and this is Tech for Business. In this video, I will show you how to install MySQL on a Mac. If you have Windows instead, check out the description for this video. There will be a link there to my video on installing MySQL on Windows. Before we get started with that, though, I would like to congratulate you for choosing MySQL. As you can see here in this screenshot from dbengines.com, MySQL is the most popular open source database system. What this means to you is that knowledge of MySQL is very marketable. And secondly, it means that there's a track record of success for MySQL applications. It's likely that any application you're imagining is in a space where MySQL has already been applied. And chances are really good that your idea will work out well. Before we get to the nitty-gritty of the installation, I'd like to explain to you the architecture of the MySQL database system. MySQL uses a client-server architecture. This is very common in database systems. The idea is this: a database server runs on a computer somewhere in the network. That database server stores all the data and has functionality to answer questions about the data and maintain the data, etc. Then in order to access data in the server, an individual person or a program runs a client that will forward commands to the server and then forward responses from the server back. So a very classic use case is that a person wants information from the database. The person starts up a client and enters a request for the needed information. That request is sent to the database server, which processes it and returns results to the client, and those results are displayed to the person. This is typically how large companies deploy MySQL database systems. The server is somewhere on the network. It's on a computer dedicated to the database server. And then individuals in the company run clients on their laptops or their MacBooks in order to interact with the database server. If you're a student, or you're a small company, or you're a developer, you may choose to run both the server and the client on your laptop or MacBook. One reason for doing this is it's a lot simpler. Simpler to install and get running, simpler to manage. This is what we will be doing today, installing both the server and the client MySQL Workbench on our MacBooks. There's not just one type of client for a database system. So if you look here at the case for the MySQL database, I have 4 examples of clients. There are many more than this. The first 3 are provided by the MySQL development community. And the 4th one is an example of a third-party client that accesses the database server. This third-party client is from the TABLEAU company. TABLEAU is software that visualizes data. And so the TABLEAU desktop software will make a connection to the database server to get data, and then it will generate graphs or charts from that data for visualization purposes. These first 3 clients are the first, the command line client, which means that the user starts a program and types SQL statements into that program. That's the command line interpreter. Those statements are sent to the database server and the responses come back. The second client here is MySQL Workbench, which is a graphical user interface, which provides various techniques for exploring the database and analyzing it. We will be installing this client today. The third client, MySQL Shell, is a programming environment to assist in the development of programs like a Python program that interact with the database server. Below all of these client names, we see a list of documentation. These are links to documentation that you could access to learn more about each of these clients. In the description for this video, you will find a link to these slides. So you can download these slides and use them in order to, for example, retrieve this documentation or follow any link in the slides. In addition, in the same description, you will find a link to my video about how to install TABLEAU Desktop and integrate it with MySQL databases so that you can dynamically retrieve data and visualize it. So let's get to the actual installation. The very first principle to know about installing MySQL Server and Workbench is that you have to install compatible versions. MySQL Workbench is currently only compatible with MySQL servers that have version numbers of 8.0 point something. There are currently 3 lines of development for MySQL, and only the line that has versions starting with 8.0.x has a compatible MySQL Workbench. I'm going to post this video now in August of 2024, and you may not find it for a long time. So if there's been a significant delay between when I posted this video and when you discover it, you may want to go check out supported platforms for MySQL Workbench to find out which servers have compatible MySQL Workbench software at the time that you're viewing this video. Okay, so that's principle 1. We need Workbench and MySQL Server to be compatible. The next couple slides encapsulate all of the things I've learned about the trickiness of installing MySQL Server and Workbench on Macs. It is unfortunately a little tricky, but I will show you the landscape and then I will demonstrate the installation to you. Something you need to know in order to install the server and the Workbench is the version of Mac OS that you have. So you can find that by going up to the Apple and choosing About This Mac. So here, for an older version of Mac OS, that pop-up looked like this, and you could easily see the version software. If we do this for my Mac, the pop-up's a little simpler now. But you see here, it says 14.6.1 for Mac OS, so the version number is still there. The other thing that you need to know to do the installation successfully is the architecture of your MacBook. So if we look over here in the older pop-up, we have the word processor, and this word processor says 2.8 gigahertz quad-core Intel Core i7. This will tell us the type of architecture of the underlying hardware, and because it includes the word Intel, we know that this is an x86 architecture. So x86 is the type of hardware that you're going to specify when you ask to do the install or to download the installer. If you look at mine doesn't have processor, but it has chip. Same thing. The chip here is an Apple M1 Pro. And since the word Intel does not appear on this line, I have an ARM processor. So I will be installing the ARM versions of the software. So two things you need to know. You can either check them out now and write them down, or check them out as we're picking the installer. The next thing to know is that oftentimes there are multiple kinds of installation packages listed for your architecture and your version of Mac OS. What you want to install is the DMG installer. That's what you want to download. You do not want to download a tar file or a zip file for your server software or for your Workbench software. Typically, tar files are distributed to developers with software sources so that they can alter MySQL Workbench or MySQL Server or do bug fixes. And I'm imagining that you would like the quickest path to installing these two things and getting them running. And that path definitely uses the DMG installer. For each installation, the download page must list your version of macOS as supported, or you will need to go to the archives to find an earlier version that matches your macOS. Remember the version of MySQL Server you installed, because if you install an earlier version, then you'll need an earlier version of MySQL Workbench. In general, we will always install exactly the same version of MySQL Workbench as MySQL Server. An exception to this rule is the current release of MySQL Server 8.0.39. It does work with MySQL Workbench 8.0.38, which is the most recent version of Workbench. Now, you may be working through all this, and you may have an ARM processor. And if you have an ARM processor with an earlier version of macOS, you may find that the compatible version of the software to your operating system for Workbench does not list ARM as one of the architectures. That's actually okay for Workbench. The ARM-based systems can run the x86 versions of MySQL Workbench. Preferably, you would have an ARM version, but you can get away with it with Workbench. This does not work for the server. Okay, during the installation, you will need to specify a root password for the MySQL server, and you must remember this. I know of no way to recover it if you forget it and can't log into your server. So remember that password. Finally, after we get done all this installation work, we're going to create two databases, one called Sequila and one called World, to use as samples in the future. So I will show you how to do that as well. They come from this web page here. Okay, so here we go. This is what it's going to look like. We'll go to the page where we can download MySQL Server. We'll pick 8.039 and look at which versions of macOS are compatible with that. Underneath this drop down, there's a message that I've hidden. So it's down here. It says packages for macOS 14. That's this. It says macOS 14 here, are also compatible with macOS 13. So if you have 13 or 14, you can install 8.0 0.39. And then all the rest that you need to do is remember if you have an ARM or an x86 processor, pick the right one. Once you do that, there'll be only one DMG to pick, and you can download it. If, on the other hand, you have some earlier version of Mac OS, I can tell you that 10.15 was very popular, and there are still a bunch of people that have that. So if you have that kind of version, then you click on the Archives tab, and when you get to Archives, there will be a drop down here that's obscured by the arrow where you can look through all the back versions of MySQL Server and find one that's compatible with your version of Mac OS. And so here I have 8.023, and you can see for 8.023, it says packages for Catalina 10.15 are compatible with Big Sur 11. So this distribution will work with 10.15. And it's very important in this case to remember this product version, because when we go to the MySQL Workbench installer, we will want the Workbench for 8.0.23 if we're doing this server install. Great. Just a couple more things. If you are installing an earlier version of MySQL Workbench to be compatible with your operating system, you may get this error message when you try to run it. MySQL Workbench can't be opened because Apple cannot check it for malicious software. If you should get this message, there's a workaround you can use to get Workbench running. You say show in folder. When it comes up in the application folder, you right-click on MySQL Workbench. You'll get a similar message, but this time there'll be a button that says open. Just click open and you're good to go. Another thing that could happen is you may find that you installed MySQL Workbench in good faith and that it crashes repeatedly. In that case, you want to uninstall it, install the next earlier version. So you uninstall Workbench by quitting it, making sure it's not down in the running programs here by saying quit, and then go to the applications folder and throw it in the trash. You do not have to uninstall the server. Just back up MySQL Workbench one version, and it's likely to work in that case. Okay, that's it. We finished the slides. So now let's get to the installation. First thing we need to do is bring up a browser and search for MySQL Community Server. When we do that, you see here, we get a MySQL Developer Zone link, dev.mysql.com, and it says download MySQL Community Server. This is a good place to go. Let's go there. This will look familiar given what I've shown you so far. And remember, we want the 8.0.39 development line. Just so you know, innovation is the newest and greatest. It's a set of releases for developers. So if they have a third-party client, for example, they can incorporate the newest stuff before that version becomes the mainline release. The mainline release is is called long-term support release line, and it's currently at 8.4.2. Unfortunately, there's no MySQL Workbench that's compatible with it. So let's use 8.0.39. Okay, and then remember, if we go up to Apple and we say about this Mac, mine says M1 Pro. So I have a I have an ARM processor, so I'm going to go here and pick ARM. Okay, And then I have version 14. This says this package is good for 14. So I do not have to go to the archives. But if you don't have 14 or 13, you're going to have to go look through the archives for the most recent version that's compatible with your operating system. All right, so we have tar files and that DMG. We want the DMG, so we're going to download that. When we request the download, we can log in to Oracle or create an account and log in, but it's not necessary. You can just say, no thanks, start my download. So while things are downloading, there are a couple things I want to mention to you. So let me go back one. If you look here at this list of distributions, you'll see that for the 64-bit ARM distribution that I'm downloading, there's something in this gray area called an MD5. And MD5 here is a digital signature. It is calculated over the entire downloaded software. So it's a mathematical calculation that represents the content of every byte in that distribution. And so now that my download has completed, what I could do is generate another MD5 signature for it and compare that with this one. If they're the same, everything's good. If they're different, then something unusual has happened. It could be that there was a problem with the download and the file became corrupted. It could be that somebody snuck something in there that's not supposed to be in there. So if you would like a higher level of confidence in the content of the distribution you just downloaded, Google how to calculate an MD5 checksum on a Mac, and then calculate this checksum and check it against this. I'm skipping that step here. Okay, great. So what we want to do is we want to do this installation. So let's start it. Okay, so clicking here. I'm going to allow it to determine if I can do the install. Yes, I can. I'm quite happy with the license. I agree. I'm going to install it for everyone on this computer. It's just me, but I'm going to do it that way anyway. I'm just going to take the default location, and it needs the password so that the installation can be done on my computer. Hope I typed that right. So interestingly, it's done most of the work at this point. We can take the strong password encryption, so that's good. And here's where we enter our root password. So notice something here. We're entering it once, so we need to be careful and remember it. We'll test it after we're all done, so we'll know that it worked or didn't. And if it doesn't work, like you mistyped it, then probably you'll have to reinstall. So I'm typing in my password. I've made myself nervous. Let me start again. There we go. And we want to start the server once the installation completes, because then we can test it when we get the workbench installed. Okay, so this is now not the server password, but the password for installing software on my MacBook. Oops, typed in the server password. I hope that's right. Looking good. And we're done. So we're going to say close. And we can move this to the trash. Okay, so we have now installed MySQL Server. The next thing we want to do is install MySQL Workbench. And once upon a time here, I had a browser, so we're just going to open the browser again. Okay, so we can go to MySQL Community Downloads from here. We did the server. When we get to MySQL Community Downloads, you'll see MySQL Workbench. We're going to click on that. And we're going to select our OS version. So this is 8.038, which is the current version of MySQL Workbench. So I am going to install it for my ARM processor because I have that choice. If I didn't have that choice, I could pick a x86 and it would likely run on my M1 system. Okay. macOS have ARM. And as I said, 8.038 is okay for running with 8.039 server. So let's do this download. Again, no, just start my download. Okay, let's check the download. Looks like it's done. So now we can do our Workbench install. So to install Workbench, all we do is we drag, we drag this icon over here. Great. I believe that's it. So what we want to do is go to Applications and start MySQL Workbench. And we get an error message about security, but it's more subdued than the one they used earlier, and we're just going to say open. So here we are with MySQL Workbench. Okay, and you should have a gray box like this that is a connection to localhost and root. Okay, so no, we are logging in with that root account and password that we specified. For the purposes of learning, it's okay to use this root account, I think. It eliminates some security issues. But if you are doing any kind of production database, for example, for a small business, it's important to know that you should not routinely log into root and interact with your database system. I will do a video in a little bit and post it to explain how to configure security on the database system so that you don't need to routinely use root. Okay, so I have logged in as root into this database system. Now, it didn't ask me for a password, which is a little strange. It probably asked you. And when it asked you for the password, you could put that password in the vault so that you could use it again. I deinstalled MySQL earlier so that I could show you how this works. And so I think it still remembered my password for me. Okay, so here we are in MySQL Workbench. And we have a few things. We have administration showing, and we can click here on schemas. And now we have schemas showing. And the fact that there is a database here listed under schemas is very good. That means that we are actively connected to the MySQL server. But I generally like to check these things. So the sys database is not one to play with routinely, but we're going to do just a quick check. We're going to open tables. We see this one table, and we're going to go out here to the square and click this square. That enters a query to list the contents of that table, and here are the contents. Okay, so This looks good. Do not generally play with this database because this is the database that MySQL uses to manage the entire system, and you don't want to accidentally change it. Okay. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with this, except that I need those two databases to give us some stuff that we could talk about down the line and experiment with. So if I go back to my browser, I previously put in that URL that I showed you, and I'm hoping it's still here. Although, yes, here it is. Okay, so if we go to this URL, dev.mysql.com/docs/index-other.html, we will get this documentation page. And if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see here are some example databases. And so we're going to do the world database and the Sequila database. So we're going to download the zip file for world and the zip file for Sequila. After we do that, oops, too soon. Sorry. Let's go to the folder where they are. Okay, so they're in downloads. We're going to double click on the Sequila database zip file. That didn't work very well. Let's try again. And we get a folder. We're going to enter that folder and we see 3 files. The files we need in order to do our installation of the Sequila database are the schema file and the data file. The schema file is the structure of the database, all the tables and their interconnections, and the data is simply the data for the tables. So we're going to click on Sequila schema.sql first. Notice it comes up automatically in my Open MySQL Workbench. Okay, that generally should happen also for you, but if it doesn't, I'm going to show you a way around it. So the first thing we're going to do is, just check out this seems good. And then there's a lightning bolt here. It's the first one. We're going to click on that. When we click on that, you'll notice that down here, we get lots and lots of commands preceded by green arrows. This is the installation of the structure of the Sequila database. It's now done. If it wasn't done, we would see some command up here to stop it. So here we're going to refresh this. We see now we have a Sequila database. And if we open all these tables, we have a whole bunch of tables. No, if we go to one of these tables like film and we go all the way out to the square, we can list everything in the table. So let's do that. And there's nothing in this table. That shouldn't be a surprise because we haven't yet created the data. So I'm going to delete this tab and I'm going to delete this tab. I'm going to go back to that folder I was looking at, I hope. Here's that folder. Here's the folder. And I'm going to now install the Sequila data. So same thing. I double click on this. It shows up here. In MySQL Workbench, I execute with the first lightning bolt. And we get all the way down to set auto commit equal at old auto commit down here in the messages. We're done. And now if I go down to film and I click on the square, you see there's a lot of data in the database. So that completes installing the Sequila database. You've done it. The database will keep it secure. You'll never have to do it again. You should close the tabs for data and schema. The next one we want to install is the world database. So if I go back to that folder, I can see the world zip file. I'm going to double click on that. Now I have my world folder. Both the schema and the data for world are all in this one file that I need to execute. We've been clicking on it and bringing it up in MySQL Workbench, but I just want to show you how you would get it into MySQL Workbench if the clicking thing is not working for you. So up here, there are some buttons, and this button says open an SQL script file. So we're going to click on that. And then we'll need to find the right file. And we know it's in downloads. We know it's in world, and here it is. And so we can just say open. This does the same thing as the double clicking. And so now again, what we want to do is hit the first lightning bolt. And we have a whole bunch of green stuff coming at the bottom here. And then if we use this refresh button on schemas, the world database appears. If we open the tables, we see we have city, countries, and country languages. So let's go out to the end of the city line and hit the square. And we see we have a whole bunch of cities. So we've successfully installed the world database. And the other databases that are on the page that we were looking at before. So if we bring back Chrome, employee data, airport data, menagerie data, these can all be installed in a similar way. If there's both a schema and a data file, install the schema first and then the data. And if you have just one file, it's pretty straightforward. If you have this extra file, MWB, you really don't need to worry about that. Okay. So we are done. We have successfully installed MySQL Server, MySQL Workbench on a Mac. If this has been helpful for you, please hit like on the video so that other people looking to install MySQL on a Mac might more easily find this video. Also, consider subscribing. There'll be more videos coming out, a tour of MySQL Workbench, various videos about relational database concepts, and using MySQL Workbench to learn about them. Thanks for joining me, and see you next time.